Back then, everything still felt pretty simple. I was 15, still in that stretch of life where birthdays meant junk food and gaming marathons instead of dinner bills or job stress. I wasn't a little kid anymore, but I still had sleepovers. That night just felt like any other. It was my birthday weekend, early October. My mom, she's a trauma nurse, was scheduled for an overnight at the hospital, so the house was ours for the night. I invited 3 of my guys, Malik, Ty, and Noah. We'd all known each other since 5th grade. They came over with snacks, energy drinks, and this plan to stay up until sunrise doing dumb stuff like prank calls and binging horror movies we pretended didn't freak us out. We set up camp in the living room, blankets, spare mattresses, controllers everywhere. It was a little chaotic, but perfect. Our dog Luna was curled up on the rug like usual, passed out after begging for half a pizza roll. I remember thinking it was one of those nights I'd want to remember. Somewhere around midnight, Noah started looking for his hoodie. "I swear I left it on that chair," he said, flipping over a throw pillow like it had swallowed his stuff. We didn't think much of it at first. Malik joked he probably wore it and forgot. Ty said, "Bro, check the fridge," because Ty always says something stupid when he's tired. Noah gave up pretty fast, sat back down, and shrugged. Then Malik couldn't find his blanket, the one he brought from home. Just gone. We did a quick check under the table, behind the couch. Nothing. Everyone assumed Ty was pulling one of his usual sleepover pranks, but Ty seemed genuinely confused this time. It was weird, sure, but it was late, and we were wired on soda and horror movie adrenaline, so we moved on. You don't want to admit when you feel something shift, when the night starts to feel off. But then Luna did something she never does. She walked over to the hallway, paused, and just stood there, tense. Her tail lowered. She growled, not playful. A low, steady sound. She backed away from the hallway leading to my room, wouldn't go near it again. That was the first moment I felt my stomach flip. I didn't want to go look. Not really. But everyone turned to me because it was my room, my house, my dog growling like something was wrong. "Probably just a possum," Ty said, halfway joking. But he wasn't laughing. I grabbed my phone flashlight and headed toward the hallway. My room was dim, light from the street bleeding in through the blinds. I stepped in, flipped on the ceiling fan light, and stood still for a second. Everything looked fine. Then I crouched down beside the bed to check underneath. At first, all I saw was darkness, dust, a couple of old sneakers. Then I moved my phone light closer and something reflected back. 2 eyes. They didn't glow. They didn't blink. They were just there, watching. Human. I didn't scream right away. I just froze. My whole body stopped working for a second like it didn't know how to respond. Then my heart kicked in, hard. I pushed backward so fast I hit the closet door. "Jay?" Noah called. "What is it?" I scrambled out into the hallway and said the only thing I could. "Someone's under my bed." They all looked at me like I'd told a bad joke. Then they saw my face. "What do you mean, someone?" Malik asked. "I mean someone, a person. I saw them." That's when we all ran back into the living room. Luna followed us but wouldn't stop pacing. She kept looking toward the hallway like she was still hearing something. We locked the door, sat close. Everyone had their phones out. No one wanted to call 911 in case we were wrong. What if it was nothing? A weird shadow, a bad dream. But no one wanted to check either. Noah grabbed a broom and said, "Should we just poke under there or something?" "No, dude," I said. "If someone's really there, what then?" Nobody answered. We sat there, lights on, pretending we weren't as freaked out as we were. But every noise, the house settling, the fridge hum, Luna's restless pacing, it all sounded like footsteps, and none of us slept. My mom came home just after 7, still in her blue scrubs, hair in a bun, bags under her eyes from a 12-hour shift. First thing she noticed? Every light in the house still on. Second thing? 4 tired, freaked-out boys on the living room floor. "What happened?" she asked, already frowning. We told her. I expected her to laugh, say it was our imagination, but she didn't. She listened. Then she checked the back door, and that's when she saw the muddy prints on the tile floor. They started at the back door, crossed into the hallway, and stopped near my room. "Did one of you go outside last night?" she asked. "No," I said. "We didn't leave the house." She called the cops. They showed up about half an hour later. One was older, Officer Green. The other was younger, barely looked older than my cousin. They walked through the house, checked my room, under the bed. Nothing. No signs of forced entry, Officer Green said. Windows were locked, back door was shut. He looked at the prints again. Probably just an animal. "Do raccoons wear sneakers?" Malik muttered. The officers didn't find anything. No one was under the bed. They took notes, gave my mom a number to call if anything else happened, and left. That should have been it. But it wasn't. 3 days later, Officer Green came back to the house. He didn't come in uniform this time. Just jeans and a pullover, standing on our front porch like someone bringing bad news. "We caught a guy," he said, 2 blocks from here. Broke into a house, tried to hide in their attic. Could have been up there for a week. Maybe longer. "Think it's the same guy?" I asked. "We can't say for sure, but it's possible." That night I went into the attic. I didn't want to, but something in me needed to know. Our attic wasn't finished, just insulation and wood beams, boxes and dust. I found a pile of wrappers, an empty water bottle, a small bag from the gas station, a crumpled piece of fleece blanket, Malik's blanket. I sat there for a second in that low, hot space above the hallway, realizing someone had been living here. Not just for an hour, maybe for days. And I'd slept under him. All of us had. We didn't do another sleepover after that. Not for a long time. Not at my place or anywhere else. Something about it, about the whole night, just shifted how we looked at everything. We still hung out, sure, still joked, still played games. But we were more careful, more aware. Noah locks his bedroom window now, even though it's on the 2nd floor. Ty keeps a baseball bat under his bed. Malik started checking hotel rooms whenever we traveled for school trips. And me? I still check under every bed. Not because I think someone's there, but because I know they could be. That's the part that changes you. Not the fear, but the knowing. That even when you think you're safe, something, or someone, might already be inside. It's not always the dark that should scare you. It's what's already waiting inside it. Pay attention, trust your instincts, and don't assume locked doors mean you're alone. The summer before sophomore year, my friend Sierra moved into a small apartment complex in Asheville with her mom. It was one of those quiet buildings that smelled like carpet cleaner and old laundry rooms, the kind where everyone pretends to know each other but keeps their blinds shut anyway. Sierra's parents had split that spring, and she'd gone from a 2-story house to a 2-bedroom unit on the 2nd floor of Vista Pine Apartments. Her mom worked nights at the hospital, which meant Sierra had long stretches of time alone. So when she invited me, Harper, and Jules over for a girls' night, we didn't even hesitate. We brought snacks, a Bluetooth speaker, and enough cheap face masks to ruin all our pores. The place was cozy, small kitchen, carpeted living room, a tiny balcony with a sliding glass door that looked out over the parking lot. Sierra had rearranged her room twice already and lit a candle that smelled like pumpkin muffins. We danced to old TikTok audios, ate ice cream straight from the tub, and piled onto her bed in pajamas. Everything felt normal until 9:15. There was a light rattle, just the sliding door on the balcony. At first I thought it was the wind, but then we saw him. Dave, the downstairs neighbor, middle-aged, always in socks and sandals. He stood there, hands in his pockets, just smiling, not saying anything at first. Then, "Heard you girls were having a party? Mind if I join?" Sierra pulled the curtain shut like it was just a joke. "He's weird but harmless," she whispered. We let it go, kind of. I mean, yeah, it was weird, but maybe he was just awkward. Lonely even. Older people talk to teens like we're their kids sometimes, especially when they live alone. We didn't want to make a big deal. Still, that smile, it stuck with me. An hour passed. We'd moved on to some bad horror movie, one of those ones where the villain wears a fake baby mask and all the characters make dumb choices. Harper had just spilled popcorn in Sierra's bed when there was another sound. A knock. Not loud, not urgent, just soft. We paused the movie. Harper muted the speaker. Then came the voice. "Didn't want you girls to go hungry?" We peeked out through the front window. There he was again, Dave, holding a pizza box. No delivery branding. Just one of those white boxes from cheap mom-and-pop places, the kind that leaves your fingers greasy for hours. He was wearing the same faded band t-shirt, this time with a windbreaker zipped halfway. "No, thank you," Jules called through the door. He stood there for a moment like he didn't hear her. Then he nodded slowly and walked away without another word. We looked at each other. "Okay, that's weird," Harper said, her voice tight. "Like, actually weird." Sierra looked embarrassed. "I swear he's just like this. He talked to my mom last week about buying her a toaster because he heard ours shorted out. She was polite, but it creeped her out too. I wanted to say something like, he's probably just trying to be nice, but I didn't. Because something about the way he looked at us, too long, too still, didn't feel like nice. It felt like a test, like he was waiting to see how far he could go." We locked the door, just in case. Sierra texted her mom, who didn't answer. We tried to act like everything was fine after that. We turned the movie back on, talked over the creepy parts, threw marshmallows at each other like idiots to break the tension. But by midnight, we weren't laughing anymore. We had moved to the bedroom, crowding onto Sierra's bed with the lights dim and the hallway lamp casting shadows through the doorway. We weren't really watching the screen anymore, just scrolling, tired, but not wanting to sleep. Then we heard it. Tap, tap, tap. At the bedroom window. I froze. Jules grabbed my arm. We all turned at the same time. He was there. Dave. Outside the second-floor bedroom window, whispering. "Hey girls, want to hang out?" It was so quiet, like he was trying not to wake anyone else. Just us. Sierra screamed. We all did. She yanked the curtains shut and backed into the wall, hands shaking. Jules started crying. Harper ran to grab her phone. I called 911. My fingers wouldn't work at first. The dispatcher asked if he was trying to break in. I said no, but that he was at our window, watching us, whispering. Sierra locked the bedroom door, as if that would matter if he got inside. We huddled together in her mom's room, heartbeats slamming through silence. We waited for what felt like forever until red and blue lights finally pulled into the lot. The cops were calm. Too calm. One of them, Officer Beasley, knocked on the front door and talked to us through the screen. We gave him Dave's name, apartment number, what he said, what he did. They found Dave sitting on his porch, drinking a Diet Coke like nothing happened. He told them he was just being friendly. Said he brought pizza because he figured we might be hungry. When they asked about the window, he laughed it off. Said maybe we imagined that part, or maybe it was a misunderstanding. "You know how teenage girls can be," he said. "They didn't arrest him. They gave him a warning, told him to stay away from our unit. That was it." Sierra looked hollow when she shut the door. "What if he does it again?" Jules asked. The cop just shrugged. "Then call us again." When Sierra's mom got home at 6:30, she was half awake and already in her scrubs for the next shift. Sierra told her everything, all of it. She listened, but she didn't say much. "He's probably just lonely," she finally said. "Some people don't know how to act around kids." But we weren't kids, not anymore. And just lonely didn't cover it. None of us ever stayed at Sierra's place again. Not because we didn't love her, but because we couldn't unsee his face. That smile, that whisper, the way the pizza box had a grease stain shaped like a hand. I started locking my bedroom window after that. even in summer. Even on nights when it was hot and the AC didn't reach the corners of my room. Harper started carrying pepper spray. Jules made her parents install a video doorbell. And Sierra? She kept the blinds closed, always. Didn't answer the door unless it was her mom. She'd act normal at school, but you could tell she was never totally at ease again. I don't know what Dave wanted. I don't want to, but what I do know is this. When someone makes you feel uncomfortable, it doesn't matter how polite they are, or how harmless they seem. If they don't respect a no, you're not safe. Creepy isn't always dramatic. It's often soft-spoken, persistent, and smiling. Trust your gut. Politeness doesn't owe anyone access to your peace or safety. When you're 17 and suffocating in a town like ours, any excuse to get out feels like a lifeline. So when Mina suggested a weekend at a lakefront Airbnb in upstate New York, no parents, no curfews, just us and whatever snacks we could cram into a duffel, I was all in before she even finished pitching it. She'd found this place online. Briar Creek Lakefront Cabins, Unit Number 5. It was cute in the photos. Vaulted ceilings, wood-burning fireplace, rustic loft with sleeping bags already laid out. The reviews were decent. A little old school, no smart lock or keypad, but Mina said it added charm. We drove up that Saturday afternoon, music blasting, trading bad gossip about school drama we were happy to leave behind. The sky was golden orange when we pulled in, leaves crunching under tires, cool breeze off the water. It felt like we were stepping into a fall-themed Instagram post. The host, Mr. R, was waiting. Older guy, maybe late 50s with flannel and those khaki hiking pants older men seem to collect. He didn't talk much, just walked us around the cabin, showed us the wood pile, the fire extinguisher, the emergency back exit behind the kitchen. What struck me was how long he stood in the doorway before leaving. Like he wanted to say something but didn't. "You girls have everything you need?" he asked, smiling, but the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah, we're good," Mina said quickly. "Thanks again." He nodded, then drove off in his dusty Subaru. Inside the place was cute, yeah, cozy. There was a weird creak in the floor when you stepped near the hallway, but we chalked it up to age. We dumped our bags, claimed the main bed, and unpacked our junk food like we were settling in for a weekend retreat. It felt right. For a while. Then, brushing my teeth before bed, I noticed the toothbrush wrapper was already open, and not like I tore it by accident. It looked peeled back, neat, like someone else had done it. I said something to Mina, who shrugged. "Maybe you opened it this morning and forgot." But I hadn't. I didn't say more, just placed the toothbrush back on the sink. But in that moment, the charm of the cabin started to fade, slightly, subtly, enough to feel it in my chest. That first night should have been peaceful. We had the fire going, our phones plugged in, and some random Netflix movie playing in the background while we passed popcorn back and forth between our sleeping bags. No drama, no school, just two best friends being stupid. But weird things added up. Mina swore she packed 3 pairs of socks, thick fuzzy ones she always wore to sleep. But one was gone. Not both, just one. She flipped her bag inside out, checked under the couch. Nothing. "You probably dropped it in the car," I said, though something about the situation made my skin crawl. There was the shampoo, too. I had brought this little green travel bottle half full. When I went to shower before bed, it had been moved to the far end of the tub, and it wasn't full anymore. Less than I remembered. That night, I double-checked the locks. Twice. The cabin had this old-school deadbolt and a tiny chain that honestly looked like it could snap with enough force. Mina joked about ghosts, but her voice lacked its usual edge. We were both trying too hard to keep things light. Around 12:40 a.m., we finally settled in. The fireplace had gone out, but the room was warm, and the only sound was the occasional groan of the cabin adjusting to the cold. I drifted off with my phone clutched in my hand. Until I woke at 3:12 a.m. Something had creaked above us. Now the cabin had a loft area. It was open, no door, Just a ladder leading up to a small platform with sleeping bags and a dusty window. We hadn't used it, at all. But that sound? It was clear, slow, like someone shifting their weight on old wood. I sat up. So did Mina. We didn't speak. "You locked the loft hatch earlier, right?" I whispered. "Yeah," she said. "I think so." "Think so." We both stared at the ladder. The flashlight from Mina's bag was dim, but worked. She pointed it upward. Dust floated in the beam like tiny ghosts. Then we saw it, a crumpled blanket, folded messily, like someone had been lying there. We ran. No shoes, no jackets, just phones and each other. The front door was harder to unlock when you're shaking. I remember Mina's hands fumbling with the chain, both of us whispering, "Hurry, hurry, hurry," like a prayer. The second the deadbolt clicked, we bolted. The woods behind the cabin were dense, filled with thorny bushes and damp leaves, but we didn't stop. We ran barefoot through underbrush, branches scratching our arms, until we found a low spot near the water where we crouched behind a boulder. Our phones had barely 1 bar of service. I called 911. Twice it dropped before I could finish the sentence. Mina finally got through and gave the dispatcher our exact address from the Airbnb booking. She whispered into the phone like she thought the guy, whoever had been up there, might hear us from inside. We waited. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. Time bends when you're that scared. Every sound, every crack of a twig, felt like footsteps. Finally, red and blue lights appeared through the trees. 2 cops in uniforms came with flashlights and calm, slow voices. "You girls okay? Anyone inside?" We told them. About the toothbrush, the sock, the shampoo, the creak upstairs. They went in. And for the second time that night, I heard the floorboards groan. The officers didn't find anyone. No man, no broken window, no unlocked door. But they found wet footprints. Not muddy, not dirty, just damp outlines. They started near the bathroom and led toward the loft ladder, like someone had walked barefoot across the cabin. Under one of the guest beds, they found a half-empty thermos and a wadded-up sock that wasn't either of ours. The bedding up in the loft had body indentations, one side sunken more than the other. The cops said maybe the host forgot to clean up after the last guest. We knew better. The host, Mr. R, showed up 20 minutes later after the police called him. He acted surprised, said he'd only cleaned the cabin 2 days earlier, claimed he had no idea what we were talking about. He didn't look scared, or even that upset, just blank. One officer took his statement. The other pulled me aside and lowered his voice. "This kind of thing happens sometimes," he said. "You get people who figure out when cabins are booked, sneak in before the guests arrive, hide somewhere. They call it frogging. Most are just squatters, but you never really know." We didn't sleep that night, and we didn't stay. Our parents picked us up at a gas station the next morning. I didn't look back at the cabin when we left. It's been months, but I still think about that night. I don't use Airbnb anymore. Neither does Mina. She won't even stay in hotels without checking the closets and under the beds. I started keeping a flashlight by my nightstand. I always check the window locks. Always. No one was ever arrested. No follow-up from the police. The listing was taken down a week later, maybe by Mr. R, maybe by Airbnb. I never found out. But I still remember how cold the air felt blowing down from the loft. How that thermos looked too new to have been forgotten. How my toothbrush wrapper had been peeled back just enough. And sometimes when I wake up at 3:12 for no reason, I stare into the dark and wonder, was he already watching us when we checked in? Not all strangers come through the front door. Sometimes they're already inside. Always trust your instincts and never ignore the little signs, because they're usually the first warnings. It was supposed to be calm. That's all we wanted. No parties, no crowds, no fighting for an Uber in freezing heels at 2 a.m. Just me, Rhea, and Danny, 3 roommates, 3 wine coolers each, and a rented cabin in the Catskills for New Year's Eve. We'd been saving since mid-October, and Danny found this place on some cabin rental app. Remote but cozy, the listing said. Birch Hill Cabin Retreat. Lot number 3. The pictures looked charming. String lights, wood stove, snow-covered trees out every window. It felt like something from a winter dream. Except it wasn't. First, the GPS lost signal about 20 minutes before we arrived. We turned around twice before finally spotting a barely visible mailbox buried in snow. The driveway was more of a narrow ice trail. When we pulled up, the cabin looked smaller than the photos. Way smaller. One room with a loft bed, an ancient space heater, and no Wi-Fi. None of us had more than one bar of service, and that disappeared by the time we unpacked. Still, we tried to lean into it. Rhea lit some candles, Danny set out snacks, and I started warming soup over the little stovetop. It was freezing inside. We layered sweaters over hoodies and still couldn't stop shivering. At one point, Rhea joked, "This is how every horror movie starts." I laughed, but I also started looking at the windows a little differently after that. By 10:30, we were all curled up on the couch, passing around a cheap bottle of Moscato and talking about resolutions we didn't actually believe in. I was mid-sentence when there was this hard bang on the door. We all jumped, like, jumped for real. I looked at the other girls. Rhea whispered, "Who the hell would knock out here?" I peeked through the side curtain. There was a man, early 40s maybe, tall, scruffy beard, red flannel jacket. He held a flashlight pointed down at the snow and said loudly, "Evenin'. I'm the neighbor down the hill. Just came to ask y'all to turn the music down." Only, we hadn't played a single song all night. I forced a smile. "Oh, sorry. We'll keep it quiet." He nodded once. No smile. Then just walked off, boots crunching in the snow. We locked the door the second it shut. I tried to brush it off. Just a weird encounter. Probably a guy who lives alone and isn't used to people renting out the cabins near his property. Still, something didn't sit right. Back on the couch, we didn't talk much. Rhea checked her phone, still no signal, and Danny pulled her sleeping bag closer around her like it might keep out more than just the cold. "Did we make any noise?" I finally asked. "No," Rhea said flatly. "I mean, we've been talking, not even loud." Danny added, "We haven't touched the Bluetooth speaker, he made that up." It was the way he'd said it, like a script he'd practiced. Too confident, too fast. We decided to sleep in shifts, at least until midnight. It felt overcautious, but none of us wanted to admit how scared we were. At 11:12, there was a shatter. We all screamed. Rhea threw open the curtain. The driver's side windshield on Danny's car cracked through. Not smashed completely, but fractured like a spiderweb. The man was gone. I grabbed my phone and tried 911. Call failed. Danny tried hers. Same thing. "I want to leave," she said. "Right now." But the road out was downhill, iced over, and we hadn't brought chains or snow tires. Plus, he could be waiting out there. We didn't even know which direction he'd gone. That's when Rhea said it. The quietest I'd ever heard her. "What if he's still watching?" We blocked the door with the coffee table, stacked 2 chairs under the handle, and pulled the space heater into the kitchen. We couldn't stop shaking. Cold or fear, I don't know. None of us were sleeping anymore. Then came the worst part. Footsteps. On the roof. Slow. One after the other. We turned off the lights. And then, tapping. On the back door. Just the glass. Not knocking. More like fingers. Like someone playing. I thought I was going to throw up. We crouched under the kitchen table, holding the only 3 things that felt like weapons. 2 butter knives and the cast iron skillet. None of us spoke. The heater buzzed quietly beside us like it didn't understand what was happening. The tapping stopped. For 5 minutes, maybe 10. Then a slam upstairs. A gust of wind rushed down the ladder from the loft, cold and sharp. Something had burst open. A window. Rhea jumped up to close it and froze halfway up the ladder. "Lana," she whispered. "Come here, slowly." I climbed up beside her, flashlight in hand. There, taped to the inside of the loft's little triangle window, was a note. written in thin black marker on yellow paper. "I told you to be quiet," we screamed. Rhea yanked the ladder up behind us. I ran to block the main door again while Danny curled up in the corner, knees to chest, muttering something I couldn't understand. We barely slept. Every time the wind moved the house, I flinched. Every branch that knocked the glass, I braced for another face outside the window. I've never wanted morning so badly in my life. At some point, I passed out. I only know because I opened my eyes, and light was leaking through the windows. Pale, gray morning. We unlocked the front door together, slowly. Outside, the snow had a thin new layer, undisturbed except for tire tracks heading back down the hill, and one set of boot prints from the woods, leading right up to the side window, the one where we had left the curtain open earlier in the night. He'd been watching us from the start. Police arrived an hour later after we walked half a mile down to a nearby cabin with a landline. They were kind, but not surprised. Turns out he wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't from town at all. A man recently released from a psychiatric care facility 2 towns over. No ID, no fixed address. They said we were lucky, that it could have gone a lot worse. We didn't stay to pack. We didn't even argue over the deposit. We never went back. We broke our lease together a week later. The apartment in White Plains that we were going to share next semester? We pulled out. Rhea moved back home. Danny switched campuses. I stayed at school, but I never walked anywhere alone after dark again. We didn't talk about Birch Hill after that. It became one of those things you pretend didn't happen. But it did. I can still feel the cold of that loft window. Still hear the tap, tap, tap on the glass. Still see that note in my dreams. I didn't make any New Year's resolutions that year. I didn't need to. I survived. That was enough. Not everyone who knocks means well. Some come with smiles, some with lies, and some don't knock at all. If your instincts whisper that something's wrong, believe them. That whisper might be the only warning you get. When I started renovating the basement last summer, it was supposed to be more than just drywall and flooring. It was a symbol. A symbol that I was growing up. That I could transform a dark, unused area into a place for my friends. A place that was mine. I'd ripped out old paneling, painted the walls a matte navy blue, laid vinyl plank flooring that wouldn't warp over time, and installed LED strip lights along the ceiling. I ordered a mini fridge, sourced a second-hand pool table, and even set up a projector screen. This was where we would laugh, play games, maybe sneak in a beer once we turned 18. It was a space that said, "We belong here." So, when I texted my crew, Zach, Mason, Jordan, Eli, to come over Saturday night, around 7, I felt proud. Casually, I told them I'd unloaded 2 cases of energy drinks and pizza was on me. They came through right on time. Shirts with bands they liked, stories from school, typical teenage swagger in their step. The first 2 hours were everything I hoped for. Pool games, trash talk over who beat who, the projector playing zombie comedy trailers while we cracked jokes. I saw the basement come to life in a weightless, easy way, like we were on the cusp of teenage legend making. I passed out the pizza. We popped sodas. I remember thinking, this is perfect. At around 10:30, after extra slices, I asked if anyone wanted to step out for fresh air. I headed upstairs briefly to check the porch light, set up another string of lights outside. When I came back down, there was an extra person sitting on the couch, lean, fidgety, wearing my cousin Toby's old red hoodie. I froze. "Hey," he said, nodding at us. That was all. My stomach twisted. Zach was quick, the first to speak. "Hey man, you new around here?" Toby shifted. "I'm, Dom's cousin, Toby. I was passing by, thought I'd see the spot." My chest clenched. Cousin? I hadn't seen him in years. I knew him, it was him. But that word didn't fit what I was feeling. He smelled cheap. Sweaty, cheap cologne, stale energy drink. His eyes flicked toward my pool table, my fridge, that projector cabinet I hadn't even turned on yet. He settled when I invited him to sit. He didn't volunteer to help. He let Eli drove 3 slices of pizza to him. He didn't say much, but when he spoke, it felt like we were intruding. His tone was bored, distant. I introduced him to the rest. Somehow he stared at me like I'd given him a token role in my party. I kept my voice steady. Glad you could come by. I was telling them how we set this up. He didn't interrupt. He just nodded. I tried to be okay. I rationalized. He might be in town, staying a couple days, thought he'd hang. But something about how he stayed, didn't leave for hours, felt wrong. I shrugged it off when he left around 12:15. He grabbed a piece of pizza, said thanks, no real tone, then walked out. I didn't think much of it. Everyone went upstairs to crash except me. I left the fridge door open and my keys on table before I headed up too. That's when I heard the bang. It was fast and loud. 3 raps on the basement door, one after the other, fierce. My heart leaped out of my chest. I told the guys to stay put. I grabbed my pocket flashlight, flicked it on, and took a breath. Then the door burst open. 2 masked men stormed in. One swung a crowbar at the door, denting the wood. The second pointed at us and barked, "Phones and wallets." Now. Time masked itself. I saw Jordan jump up, was pushed down hard. I remember the slam of Zach's phone hitting the floor, people hitting the ground with loud thuds. I remember a moment of quiet, just my own breathing. Then guns. Or maybe not. The shine from metal as belts moved. We were told to lie down, face to the floor. Abby's red energy drink rolled out of my hand. I recall thinking, they're taking everything but mine. When I opened my eyes, it was chaos. I wasn't hit, I was just lying, stunned. I saw the masked men running back to the door. They paused by me. One reached inside his mask to whisper, "That one stays." Gloved finger pointed at me. I lay still. The other grabbed my bag, phone, Mason's wallet, Eli's pack, Jordan's watch, and they pounced out. I sat up once they slammed the door behind them. We looked at each other, moved like we'd woken from a dream. Zach's hands shook over his head. Jordan rubbed a bruise on his shoulder. Eli's face was white. None of the thieves smacked me. None touched my phone or my watch. I felt relief at first. Then confusion. "Why didn't they take ours?" Eli asked, voice small. Dread bloomed in my chest. I looked at my own phone on the table, my watch, my wallet in my pocket. I pretended it was luck, but something inside told me different. We called the police within minutes, but none of us spoke up yet on the ride to the station. I couldn't admit the truth, at least not yet. The cops took statements from all of us, wrote up a report. It was surreal, trying to talk about how everyone had to lie on the cold concrete floor. I noticed the cashier at the convenience store looked at me strangely as I handed over my ID. Maybe it was me, but I felt watched. At school Monday, rumors had already started. Dom's basement got held up. Then came, his cousin Toby was seen pawning stuff. I checked my phone later. I found a post from a pawn shop Instagram near our town. Someone sold a silver Fitbit, matching Jordan's. Another sold a phone case exactly like Eli's. Zach was furious. "Dude, are you serious? Your own cousin?" I tried to explain. "I don't know. Maybe he said he was just visiting." Eli dropped from our group chat. Zach left the group message. Jordan ghosted me at lunch. Every time I looked at them, I saw distrust. Betrayal. I canceled Thanksgiving. I dropped into therapy. I told my parents I felt guilty. They said, "You're a kid. You did nothing wrong." But I felt like I had. I never even asked my cousin Toby what happened, because I didn't want to know if he'd lie to my face. I left Cherryfield High 3 weeks later. We'd enrolled earlier at the technical school 2 towns over. I moved in with my aunt to avoid traffic. I avoided every familiar street and I rebuilt everything slowly. I didn't hold basement hangouts. My few remaining friends came, but I kept the doors open, made sure someone else had a key. I would wake in the night covered in sweat, convinced someone would slash the door because they saw me in a basement, vulnerable, and decided I didn't deserve what I built. I pulled back socially. I joined robotics club. I avoided group chats. My love for building things doesn't feel the same when a familiar face can tear it down. But I still built. I'm restoring an old desk now. It's nice. It's quiet. I still get pride from seeing a nail sink straight. I still get a thrill when wood lines match perfectly. And I know nothing can take that feeling away, as long as I hold the tools. It's not the basement I fear anymore. It's betrayal. And I faced that fear. I survived. Trust is earned, not given, especially by those who belong to your world. It only takes one betrayal to shatter the safest place you know. Be careful who you let in, and never assume family always has your back. When Tyler Parker handed me an invite to his 13th birthday sleepover, I pretended to act chill. A casual, cool thanks, like it wasn't the biggest thing that had happened to me all spring. I tucked the flyer into my pocket and didn't tell anyone, not even my mom, until the day before. We weren't close, not really. I lived 2 blocks away and we had math together, but Tyler was the kind of kid who always had a circle of people around him. Funny, good at sports, the kind who could say something dumb and still make it sound cool. I was not that. But I liked him. Quietly. Secretly. The kind of way that sneaks up on you before you even know what the word crush means. It wasn't something I planned to admit. Not then. Maybe not ever. I didn't even fully understand it myself. But I knew being invited to that sleepover felt like stepping into sunlight after months in the shade. His parents had set up a backyard tent big enough for all of us, strung with fairy lights, and there was a fire pit, s'mores, cupcakes, and a projector showing scary movies on a white bedsheet. 7 of us crammed inside, sleeping bags, soda cans, half-eaten pizza. Laughter buzzed in the warm April air, and for a while, I forgot about the ache in my chest. But later that night, while everyone was halfway into the second movie, something felt off. I was sitting near the back of the tent, and when I glanced past the projector, toward the tree line behind the fence, I saw someone standing there. Still, not smoking, not moving, just there. At first, I told myself it was my imagination. Then I looked again, and he was still staring. I didn't say anything right away. Not because I wasn't scared, I was, but because I didn't want to sound like a weirdo in front of Tyler. He was sitting cross-legged across from me, his mouth slightly open in a half smile at the movie, the flickering light of the screen reflecting off his cheekbones. I watched him laugh at something Mason said and forced myself to look away from the trees. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was just some branch or shadow shaped weirdly. But a few minutes later I saw him again. Same spot, same stillness. My mouth went dry. I leaned over and whispered to Tyler, trying to keep it casual. "Hey, I think there's someone in the trees." He turned and squinted. "Where?" "Back fence, behind the fire pit." He stared for a few seconds, then shook his head. "It's probably Mr. Reyes. He walks his dog back there sometimes. You're just creeping yourself out, dude." I nodded like I believed him. But I knew better. The man hadn't moved in 10 minutes. No leash, no flashlight, just standing in the dark. Around 11:15, I told the others I had to pee and slipped through the side gate into the house. The hallway was dark, quiet. I moved slow, half-scared Tyler's dog would bark at me. As I passed the kitchen window, I glanced out. Just habit, and my breath caught in my throat. He was there, not in the trees this time. At the window, staring in, face partially lit by the kitchen light. Mid-40s maybe, unshaven, eyes too wide, just staring. No phone, no motion, not even blinking. I ducked and crawled out of the room, heart hammering. I didn't tell the others about the window. I couldn't. Something about it felt too real to say out loud. Like if I said it, it would become part of the night forever. and I wasn't ready for that. By the time I made it back outside, the fire pit had burned down to just a low flicker, and the projector was off. Most of the boys were inside the tent, swapping stories and trying to scare each other with fake ghost voices. Tyler was sitting by the tent entrance, shoeless, poking at the last of the marshmallows. "You okay?" he asked. "You were gone a while." I shrugged. "Yeah, just, bathroom." He scooted over to make space, and I sat down. Our arms brushed for a second, and I felt like my skin lit up. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. He leaned against me just slightly, barely there, but it felt intentional. Then he yawned and rested his head on my shoulder. And I swear, I forgot about the man at the window. For about 30 seconds, I let myself imagine that maybe this was something more. Maybe he liked me, even just a little. Or maybe he was just tired and I was warm. Either way, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then came the creak. From the back gate, everyone inside the tent went quiet. No one moved. The sound came again, slow, groaning metal. It had been locked. We all heard it. Tyler sat up. "What was that?" Mason unzipped the tent a crack and peeked. Then he screamed. Panic is loud and fast and silent all at once. The tent zipped shut in seconds, everyone screaming, shoving, scrambling for phones or flashlights. Someone knocked over a soda can. Someone else knocked down the projector screen. All I could hear was the frantic rustling of nylon fabric and the sound of someone whispering, "Oh my God, oh my God." And then, stillness. We waited. "Maybe he's gone," Tyler whispered. But then, from the tent's mesh window, barely the size of a dinner plate, we saw him, just his face, pressed up against the screen, bloodshot eyes, hollow cheeks, mouth slightly open like he was mouthing something we couldn't hear. Tyler yelled. I grabbed his wrist and pulled him back. Someone kicked the cooler over. The whole tent tilted as the man's hand pushed against the side. Then, flashlight beams. Tyler's dad barreled out of the house with a bat in his hand and a floodlight behind him. "Hey, get the hell out of here!" The man ran. We heard him crash through the fence and disappear into the woods. The police came 15 minutes later. They said the man had been seen lurking outside a middle school the week before. He had a record, restraining orders, trespassing. Nothing violent. Not yet. They didn't catch him that night. We all slept inside after that. Bags and blankets dragged to the living room floor. No one really slept, not even Tyler. We all stayed close, speaking in half sentences, afraid to close our eyes. The next morning, Tyler didn't say much. None of us did. His dad apologized over pancakes and his mom promised extra locks. But something had changed. When we left, Tyler gave me a look. Half gratitude, half something else. He didn't say it, but I felt it. Thank you for staying calm. Or maybe, thank you for staying close. I never told him what it meant to me when his head rested on my shoulder. And I never told him how afraid I really was, not of the man outside, but of what might happen if the truth about how I felt ever got out. We never talked about it. Not the man, not the moment. But every now and then, when we passed each other in the halls, he'd smile in a way that told me he hadn't forgotten either. Sometimes, fear brings out the truth in us, the parts we don't speak, the feelings we hide. But in those quiet, terrifying moments, we learn who we are. Courage doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it's just staying when you want to run. It was October of 5th grade, and I was finally old enough to go to a sleepover without my mom texting every hour. I remember feeling kind of proud when she just handed me my overnight bag and said, "Be good, okay?" before I jumped into the back seat of Will Fletcher's SUV. Will lived about 10 minutes from me in a neighborhood called Pine Creek. Big trees, quiet streets, nice houses with basketball hoops in the driveways. His parents were cool in that laid-back, flannel-wearing, slightly crunchy way. Polite, but not too nosy. That night, they made us spaghetti, tossed us sodas, and told us to keep it down as they headed out to a neighbor's party a couple blocks away. We were in the basement, totally absorbed in Super Smash Bros. The TV glowed, the heat from the PlayStation humming under our legs, chip bags everywhere. It was that kind of sleepover where everything feels perfect, safe, like nothing bad could happen because you're still a kid and bad things only happen in movies. It started with me asking if we could open the window. It was one of those small rectangular ones up near the ceiling, just enough to crack it open for air. Will hopped up and unlatched it, saying something about the heat from the TV, melting our faces. That was the last normal moment of the night. We were midway through another round. Will had just KO'd me for the third time, when he suddenly paused the game. "Dude," he said, voice low. "I think someone's in the backyard." I smirked, expecting a dumb prank. "Sure, bro. It's Halloween season. You're just trying to scare me." "I'm serious," he said, not looking at me. He was leaning toward the window. Something about his tone made my stomach drop. I turned to look. At first I saw nothing. Then my eyes adjusted, and I saw it. A man, just standing there in the dark, halfway behind a bush. Still. Silent. Facing us. He wasn't moving, not waving or knocking. Just watching. For a second I thought maybe it was Will's dad, until I remembered. His parents weren't home. Will slammed the window shut so hard the pane rattled. He locked it and yanked the cord to pull the blinds down. Then we turned off the TV, the basement lights, even the string lights around the game shelf. We crawled under the bed like it was a bomb drill. My heart was thudding in my ears loud enough to drown out my thoughts. We didn't speak for a minute, just lay there in the dark, listening. Then we heard it. The back door creaking open upstairs. I don't know how long we lay there. Could have been seconds. Could have been 10 minutes. Time gets weird when you're scared. We heard the door upstairs close with a soft click. Then silence. Then footsteps. Not stomping or running. Just slow. Heavy. Will and I were still under the bed, pressed shoulder to shoulder. I felt his hand find mine. Neither of us looked at each other. I whispered, "Is your dad home?" Will shook his head so hard I felt his hair brush against me. "They left like an hour ago," he mouthed. Another footstep. Closer. There was a moment where I wanted to scream. Not even to warn someone, just to do something. But I didn't. Will was shaking and I think I was too. Then we heard the doorknob turn. Not jiggle. Turn. Someone was inside. Will grabbed his phone from under the bed, hands shaking so badly he dropped it twice before unlocking it. He called his dad. I heard him whisper, "Someone's inside the house." And then nothing for a few seconds, until outside the basement, we heard something else. A second set of footsteps. Running. Doors slamming. Voices. We didn't move until headlights filled the basement window like floodlights. Will's parents burst through the front door, his dad yelling out, "Police are coming!" His mom called our names over and over until we finally crawled out from under the bed. I didn't even realize I'd been crying until the light hit my face. Will's mom wrapped us both in a blanket like we were the same kid. The man was gone. By the time the police got there, there was nothing left except silence. And something else. The screen on the basement window had been removed. Cleanly, carefully. No broken glass, no pry marks, just gone. We didn't hear alarms, no evidence he broke anything. But someone had stood in that backyard, watched us, then made his way inside. I don't remember everything the cops said, just snippets. Could be casing the neighborhood. Could be transient. No forced entry. I didn't sleep that night. Not even when my mom came to get me and tucked me into my own bed. I couldn't stop seeing that man's silhouette. How calmly he stood there, how he didn't run. I never went back to Will's house. We stayed friends for a bit. But something about that night made everything feel different. Like we'd crossed a line that wasn't supposed to be crossed yet. The following October, when the air got cool again and the sun started setting too early, I started keeping my blinds closed. My mom thought I was just being dramatic, and maybe I was. But every creak of the back gate made my pulse spike. I started locking windows, checking under beds, little rituals that made no sense but helped me breathe. What scared me the most wasn't the man. It was how close he got. How long he might have been standing there before we even noticed. How he never tried to knock. He just watched. Sometimes the scariest things aren't the ones that break in. It's the ones that wait. The ones that blend into the night and don't make a sound. Trust your instincts, even when they whisper. Fear isn't always in your head. Sometimes it's at your window. I'd known Ellie Montgomery since 6th grade. She was the first girl to sit next to me at lunch when I was the new kid, and we stuck together ever since. She was loud, funny, sharp in ways most people missed. But underneath all of that, there was always a little bit of tension behind her eyes, especially when it came to her house. Her stepdad was the kind of man you learned not to ask questions about. He was usually away for work, and when he was home, Ellie slept over at mine. That night, though, was different. My mom said yes. He's out of town, Ellie told me, waving it off like it was nothing. Come over. We'll order food, watch dumb movies. It'll be normal for once. So I packed a sleeping bag, my toothbrush, leftover General Tso's, and got dropped off just before sunset. Her house sat on Barley Lane, right at the edge of town. Older, long porch, one of those mosquito-screen doors that never quite closed all the way. The floors creaked, the lighting buzzed faintly, and her mom barely looked up from her laptop and wine glass when I walked in. Ellie's room was upstairs, overlooking the backyard. We threw pillows everywhere, spread out snacks, and gossiped like it was a normal night. And for a while it was. But sometime around 9:30, as Ellie was laughing about some boy who tripped during gym class, I noticed something just outside the patio screen. A flicker of movement. Probably a stray cat, I told myself. But something didn't sit right. It wasn't a cat, it was slower, taller. I shook it off. I didn't want to be that friend, the paranoid one, but I should have trusted myself. We curled up on her bed, scrolling through TikTok and talking over the audio like we always did. Her room smelled like cheap candle wax and laundry detergent. It was the kind of space where you felt like you were supposed to feel safe. Then it happened. Ellie was mid-sentence when my eyes drifted back to the patio door, and this time, I saw him. There was a man standing just outside the mesh screen, his face shadowed by the porch light, body thin and wiry. He looked like he hadn't showered in weeks. No shirt, just jeans hanging off his hips. His arms were slack at his sides, but his eyes were locked on us through the mesh like he'd been there the whole time. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just gasped. Ellie followed my eyes and then let out this guttural, sharp scream, louder than I'd ever heard her make. She lunged toward the curtain and yanked it shut so hard it pulled the rod sideways. We locked every door and window we could find. Ellie's hands were shaking, and I was already pulling out my phone when she grabbed my wrist. "My mom," she whispered. "Let's wake her." We rushed to her mom's room. She was still at her desk, headphones in, another glass of wine in her hand. We explained everything, what we saw, how close he was. She didn't even look out the window. "Probably just some drunk guy from the street," she muttered. "There's always weirdos around here. Just go to sleep." Ellie's face crumpled. I stood frozen in the doorway, not sure if I should yell or cry. Eventually, we went back to her room. But we didn't sleep. We kept the lights off. We whispered. We waited. It was quiet for a while. Too quiet. Ellie sat at the foot of her bed, knees to her chest. I was sitting on the floor near the window, trying to listen for footsteps. We told ourselves it was over, that maybe he wandered off. But at 2:15 a.m. we heard a faint tapping. Not knocking. Tapping. I didn't want to look. Ellie did. She stood slowly, moved to the window, and pulled the curtain just an inch to the side. Then she froze. Her shoulders locked and she stepped back like she'd been burned. I stood up and looked. He was back, Closer this time. So close his hand was flat against the glass. His palm left smears like oil. His eyes were empty but alert, like he was studying us. Not with rage or confusion, just attention, like we were a puzzle he already knew how to solve. Ellie whispered my name. Her voice cracked. We didn't scream this time. Screaming didn't help last time. Instead, we grabbed our sleeping bags, locked her bedroom door, and hid inside the closet, phone flashlight pointed down so it wouldn't show. Every sound outside felt like him. Every floorboard, every rustle. He didn't try to break in. He didn't even move for a long time. But we knew he was there, waiting. Then, silence, followed by the rumble of a car starting outside. He left, but we never really relaxed. Not after that. Morning came like a lie, bright and soft and warm. Ellie's mom acted like nothing had happened. We told her again, everything. The man, the tapping, the closet. She just sighed. Girls, it was probably someone lost her high. Nothing to freak out about. I watched Ellie shrink. She didn't even argue. I texted my mom to pick me up an hour early. When I got home, I sat in the shower for 20 minutes, scrubbed my skin like it was my fault. Ellie stopped replying to text for a few days. Then she told me she was moving in with her grandmother. Just for a while, she said. We never found out who the man was. No reports, no arrests. But for weeks after, I kept checking the windows in my own room, especially when the light outside started to dim. Because what haunted me most wasn't that he showed up. It's how long he might have been watching before we even noticed. I never slept at Ellie's again. Sometimes I wonder if she still remembers the way he looked. I try not to think about it, but sometimes it just comes back. His face behind the screen, his palm on the glass, his blank, steady gaze. Not curious, not angry, just interested. Like he'd seen this before. Like he wasn't surprised at all to find two girls alone in a quiet house on Barley Lane. After that night, I started closing my curtains even during the day. Started sleeping with my door locked. Started listening to my instincts, even when everyone told me I was being dramatic. Because I wasn't. And I'm not. He was real. He never broke in. He didn't have to. Fear isn't always loud, and danger doesn't always announce itself. Trust your instincts. And don't wait for someone else to believe you before you protect yourself. Sometimes, the scariest monsters are the ones who simply watch and wait. Moving to a new town at 14 felt like stepping into someone else's story. Everyone already had their friends, their lunch tables, their inside jokes. I was the girl walking the halls with earbuds in, pretending not to care that nobody waved. That's why Ava Cartwright's invitation mattered so much. She was the kind of girl who could wear combat boots with a floral dress and make it work. Sharp, funny, a little dark. She leaned across the table in English class one afternoon and said, "You like horror movies, right? My mom's out this weekend. Sleepover?" I said yes before she could finish. Her house sat at the edge of a tree-wrapped cul-de-sac in Brentwood. Big, clean, a little too quiet. The kind of place where even the fridge hum sounded staged. Her mom was gone for the night, and her stepdad David was unsettling. Tall, neatly shaved. He shook my hand without looking me in the eye. "You girls behave," he said, voice low and sarcastic. "Don't stay up too late unless you want ghosts." Ava rolled her eyes and muttered, "He thinks he's funny." We set up for the night in the basement guest room. It was cozy in a makeshift way. Bean bags, an old couch, movie projector on the wall, and fairy lights taped to the beams. We watched The Ring, ate too many chips, and laughed about boys we didn't like. It felt normal. Then around 10, Ava quietly got up and locked the basement door. I raised an eyebrow. "That for the ghosts?" She didn't laugh. "Number just... Sometimes he walks around when my mom's not home." Something in her tone shifted. I thought she was kidding, but she wasn't smiling. I didn't know it yet, but that lock was the only thing keeping us safe. We stayed up until almost 1 a.m., passing sour candy back and forth and doom-scrolling TikTok. Ava told me about her mom's long absences and how David would get weird sometimes, but never enough to explain. Not until that night. It was almost 1:15 when I heard the first sound. Bare footsteps, slow, heavy, moving across the wood floor above us. I sat up. "Is that your mom?" I whispered. Ava's eyes widened. "She's in Knoxville until Sunday. It's him." More footsteps. Then, the doorknob turned, just once, soft, like someone testing it. Ava held her breath. So did I. The lock held. And then his voice came through, muffled and way too calm. "Girls? Everything okay down there?" He didn't sound worried. He sounded like he already knew the answer, like this was a test to see what we'd do. We didn't answer. More silence. Then knock. 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 Measured. Not loud, but deliberate. I reached for my phone and texted my older brother. "Call 911 now. At friend's house, man outside door." Ava whispered, "He's never tried the door before. He's just watched TV, walked around." Then his voice came again. Louder, harsher. "Ava, open the damn door." We froze. Ava looked like her soul had left her body. I could hear the fridge humming beside us, and suddenly it felt like the only thing alive in the room. The fairy lights flickered. We stayed dead still. The knocking stopped, but the footsteps upstairs started pacing, back and forth, and then finally, nothing. Just silence. But that was somehow worse. We sat there, pressed against each other on the cold basement floor, afraid to move. "Should we run?" I whispered. "Where?" Ava whispered back. "He's upstairs. There's no other exit." She was right. The basement had one door, no back entrance, and the tiny windows were half filled with dirt and sealed shut. I checked my phone. 1 bar. No reply from my brother. I typed again. "Police coming?" "Basement. He's blocking upstairs." Still nothing. The minutes dragged like hours. We didn't talk. Every creak from the pipes made me flinch. Ava kept checking the locked door, holding a flashlight like a weapon. She didn't even cry. She was just still, number like she'd rehearsed this before. Suddenly, headlights swept across the small basement windows. Car doors slammed. Ava gasped. "Cops?" We heard someone knock, this time at the front door. Muffled voices. Then loud footsteps again, crossing above us, and just like that, the basement door creaked open. But it wasn't him. It was a police officer. "Girls," he called, "you can come up now." We ran past him. My knees nearly gave out when I saw Ava's mom in the driveway, hugging her daughter like she'd been gone for years. David stood behind them, arms crossed, pretending confusion. "I was just checking on them," he said. They didn't answer. I was worried. He smiled like it was all one big misunderstanding, but no one else was smiling. The police didn't arrest him. There were no bruises, no broken locks, no obvious threat they could pin down. Just 2 scared girls and a man with excuses. Ava's mom looked shattered, not surprised, just tired. Like some part of her knew but didn't want to name it. It took me 2 years to say yes again. After what happened when I was 11, sleepovers had been off the table. My mom still doesn't know the whole story. Not really. All she knows is that my older sister, Nikki, called 911 one night while I sat shaking in the upstairs bathroom with the lights off. Our neighbor Randy jiggling the back door handle like he had every right to be there. They never caught him. No fingerprints, no cameras, and after a while, no real effort. We moved a few blocks away. Mom took a different shift. I started middle school, got better at pretending, and eventually, life started feeling normal again. So when Jayla invited me over for her 14th birthday sleepover, I didn't hesitate. I even felt excited. Movies, pizza, a break from my head. Jayla lived across town in a bigger neighborhood, safer looking somehow, and her mom and older cousin would be home the whole time. I told myself nothing bad could happen in a house full of girls, birthday balloons, and cake crumbs. It was a Friday in March, chilly but not yet spring. Jayla had fairy lights strung around the basement ceiling and a karaoke machine we abused way too hard before collapsing into a game of charades. I actually laughed that night, real laughs. The kind that push the fear down so far you almost forget it's there. Until around 11:40 when the lights blinked. Just once. We all stopped. Laughed it off. "Power surge," Jayla's cousin called down from the stairs. But then, we heard it. A soft, dragging scrape against the sliding glass door behind us. Jayla grinned nervously. Probably a raccoon. They dig through our trash sometimes. But my stomach dropped like I'd been pushed. I knew that sound. I knew it in my bones. When I turned toward the sliding door, I expected, no, I hoped, I'd see a trash bag or a tree branch or maybe my own reflection. But I saw him. A man's face pale and sagging against the glass, eyes wide open as if he'd forgotten how to blink. His forehead pressed against the pane, his breath fogging it in a slow rhythm. No expression, not angry, not smiling, just watching. I couldn't scream. My voice vanished. My legs went stiff. It was like being 11 all over again, hiding in that bathroom while Nikki whispered, "Don't move, Maya, don't even breathe." Jayla was the one who screamed. Her cousin, Chelsea, ran upstairs shouting for her mom, and the rest of the girls scattered behind the couch or under the blankets like we could disappear. But I just stood there. Because I knew who it was. Randy, older, skinnier, like time had stretched him out. But the same heavy stare, the same hollowness behind his face, something in me just knew. And then, he was gone. Slipped into the dark like he had been a trick of the light. By the time the police arrived, there was nothing but a set of muddy footprints and a small torn bag in the bushes. Inside, duct tape, gloves, a knife with a broken handle. They didn't find him that night. Said it was probably some drunk. Jayla's mom tried to act like it wasn't a big deal, but Chelsea looked pale, like she'd seen something she didn't want to admit. Me? I didn't speak much for the rest of the night, just kept looking at that glass door, afraid he'd come back, afraid he hadn't even really left. Back at school, no one believed what I saw. Jayla told people someone weird showed up, but most of the girls downplayed it. I didn't blame them. It was easier to say it was a fluke, a stranger passing through, a harmless scare. But I stopped sleeping. Every creak in my house felt like footsteps. I started keeping my bedroom blinds closed, even during the day. I kept a flashlight under my pillow. I didn't go to sleepovers anymore. I didn't even hang out after school. And then, 2 weeks later, the headline came through a local news site my mom follows. Man arrested in attempted break-in of teen girl's bedroom in Marion County. I recognized the mugshot before I even read the name. Randy H. Wallace, age 54. There it was, the face from the glass, the same eyes. Only now the stare was empty in a different way, like he was already gone and only the shadow of him was left behind. Mom gasped when she saw it on her phone. "That looks like our old neighbor," she whispered. "Didn't he move?" I didn't answer. I just walked upstairs, closed my door, and cried for the first time in weeks. After they caught him, part of me expected the fear to vanish. It didn't. Knowing he was in custody didn't erase the image of his face at the glass, or the way my legs froze, or how Jayla's cousin's voice shook when she called 911. I tried to tell a counselor about it once. She said, "You're safe now," and smiled, like that should be enough. But safety doesn't return just because the threat leaves. Some nights I still see it. That stare. Not angry, not wild, just waiting. Waiting like I owed him something. Like he'd been patient long enough. That's what haunted me. Not the violence he might have brought, but the silence. The way he waited. And even now at 16, I keep a small chair pressed under my bedroom doorknob. I double-check the window locks. I don't sleep near glass because monsters don't knock. They don't growl or groan, they stare, and sometimes they smile. I haven't talked to Jayla much since that night. Her mom sold the house the following year. I heard they moved closer to the city, where there were more streetlights. Can't blame them. I still see her Instagram stories sometimes. She's smiling, surrounded by friends, posting memes and song lyrics. I wonder if she still thinks about that night. Me? I remember everything. The flicker of the lights, the scrape on the glass, that face unmoving and real. And every time I pass a sliding door or see a basement window in the dark, my chest tightens. Not out of panic, but out of memory. Some sleepovers aren't about fun or friendship. Sometimes they're survival stories. Trust the feeling in your gut, even if no one else believes it. Because fear isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the only reason you get to go home.